Today, we meet not as competitors on the campaign trail, but as custodians of one institution upon which the health of our democracy largely depends. Our political persuasions may differ, but our constitutional obligation is shared to represent our people faithfully, legislate wisely, safeguard public resources, and ensure that those who exercise public authority are accountable to the citizens from whom that authority is derived. It is in that spirit that I address us today. The office of the Leader of the Opposition draws its authority and mandate from Article 82A of the Constitution, reinforced by the Administration of Parliament Act and given practical effect through our rules of procedure. It sits within the constitutional architecture through which Parliament holds the executive to account, a function that is not just ceremonial. Parliament was never designed as a passage point for government proposals. It exists to interrogate policy before it becomes law, to scrutinize proposals. It exists to ensure that expenditure is scrutinized before it is authorized, and to demand accountability after public resources have been spent. Where scrutiny is treated as obstruction, where disagreement is read as disloyalty, and where alternative ideas are dismissed as inconveniences, Parliament cannot discharge that function. Every mature democracy recognizes the opposition for precisely this reason. A strong opposition is one of the principal safeguards against the abuse of public power. Accountability is an act of fidelity to the people who elected all of us, and history will judge whether we proved worthy of that trust. The office of the Leader of the Opposition gives practical expression to these principles. It coordinates the work of the shadow cabinet, supports members through research and policy analysis, scrutinizes legislation and public expenditure, contributes to parliamentary business, and presents alternative policy proposals for consideration by the House. Equally important, the opposition chairs Parliament's accountability committees, because oversight is strongest when exercised independently of those responsible for implementing government programs. That arrangement reflects a constitutional understanding that public accountability is strengthened when scrutiny is credible, objective, and fearless. Honorable members, throughout the 11th Parliament, the Office of the Leader of the Opposition advanced parliamentary accountability through alternative policy statements, alternative budget priorities, minority reports, petitions, motions, matters of national importance, and oversight visits to public institutions and government projects, all aimed at ensuring that decisions of this, our august House, were informed by evidence, alternative perspectives, and the realities on ground, rather than by the government's account alone. Honorable colleagues, as we begin the work of the 12th Parliament, we should remain guided by a simple but profound truth. The confidence of the people in this institution will depend less on what we say or what we do. The confidence of the people in this institution will depend less on what we say than on what we do. Every law we pass, every budget we approve, and every oversight report we adopt must answer one fundamental question: will this improve the lives of the people who entrusted us with their vote? The Constitution has entrusted Parliament with 4 cardinal responsibilities: to legislate, to represent our constituents, to appropriate public resources, and to hold the executive accountable. None of these functions is superior to the other, and none should be exercised casually. Laws shape the character of our nation. Budgets reveal our priorities. Oversight determines whether public promises become public services. When any of these responsibilities is weakened, Parliament itself is diminished. Permit me, therefore, to offer 3 reflections that I hope will guide our work during this Parliament. First, let us safeguard the independence of Parliament. The authority of this institution does not rest in its buildings, its procedures, or even its traditions. It rests in the confidence that Ugandans have that their representatives can deliberate and decide freely, guided only by the Constitution, the law, and their conscience. Secondly, colleagues, let us protect the culture of meaningful debate. We shall not always agree, nor should we. Democracy was never designed to eliminate disagreement. It was designed to ensure that disagreement is resolved through reason rather than through intimidation, through persuasion rather than coercion, and through constitutional processes rather than arbitrary power. A parliament that welcomes diverse opinions almost always produces stronger decisions than one in which only one voice is heard. So, even though we sit on different sides of the House, we are not enemies, colleagues. And we should always be open to criticism and divergent views. Thirdly, let us defend the principle of accountability with equal determination, irrespective of who occupies public office. Public resources belong neither to government nor to Parliament. They belong to the people of Uganda. Every shilling appropriated by this House carries with it a solemn obligation to account for how it is spent. That obligation does not change with political seasons because accountability is the currency through which citizens place their trust in public institutions. Holding government accountable, colleagues, is not just to do with how money is used, but also how power and authority is used, and how the laws that we pass as Parliament are adhered to. Colleagues, it should bother us, all of us, regardless of our political differences, whenever we see a disregard for the rule of law. We are the ones who make these laws, we, as Parliament. So it's incumbent upon us to defend these laws. For example, the Constitution provides for how suspects are apprehended. A constitution that was made by Parliament. But we see people being abducted and kept in incommunicado detention for days without access to family or lawyers. And some are even tortured while there. Colleagues, this is wrong. And we, the people's representatives, ought to condemn it and ensure that it doesn't happen. The most recent victim of this is the Honorable Miriam Atembe, former MP, former minister. She participated in the formulation of our Constitution. For someone who took part in creating the foundation on which we stand, the least we could do for her is follow the right procedures if the state is interested in her for any legal reason. Besides, colleagues, criticism should never be an offense. I've heard some people say that those criticizing should always do so respectfully. And I agree. However, respect should be on both sides of the coin. Both sides, at all times. Right, Honorable Speaker, you made it clear in your remarks shortly after being declared Speaker that the media should be able to operate freely. And those media houses that had been banned from accessing Parliament eventually returned. Today, we see the same media houses that belong to Nation Media Group being shut down arbitrarily because they are holding us leaders accountable. UCC, which is the regulatory body, has said it does not know the circumstances under which the closure happened, but that it will investigate. Colleague leaders, it is in the best interest of all of us to see that institutions are functional and that the rule of law is respected. May we all regardless of our different political parties, strive to see that this happens. History has consistently demonstrated that nations are transformed not just by visionary leaders, but by strong institutions. Governments come and go. Political parties win elections and lose them. Parliamentary majorities change with time. Yet the enduring strength of our republic will depend upon whether institutions such as Parliament continue to command the confidence of those they were established to serve. As the leader of the opposition, I give this assurance: we shall discharge our constitutional mandate firmly, responsibly, and patriotically. We shall scrutinize legislation with diligence, examine public expenditure with rigor, present alternative proposals with honesty, and hold the executive accountable with fairness. Where government actions advance the national interest, they will find constructive support from us. Where they depart from the Constitution, however, and undermine accountability or fail the people we all represent, we shall speak with clarity, conviction, and respect for this institution. Allow me to conclude where I began. We are part of this House at the behest of the people of Uganda. That confidence is not a permanent possession. It is a trust renewed only through faithful service. Long after the speeches we make have been forgotten, and long after the divisions in our chamber have faded into history, one question will remain: did our service strengthen Parliament?
Not you, but in the previous parliaments. You have only one type. The previous parliaments, there is a type who's about barriers. He can concentrate there and then he could be re-elected. Then there's one who wants to make a national contribution. And if you are that sort of person, please go to Article 79, understand it, appreciate it. Then it eventually defines what you are going to say. So look at Article 79, it defines the obligations of Parliament. It tells you what you are supposed to do. It tells you about your mandate and your obligations. Look at Article 79. This one is about the executive authority. To the members of Parliament and to honorable ministers, the executive authority is vested in one office, in one person, the president. You all exercise your duties as and when and at the pleasure of the president. All that authority of the executive rests in the office of the president and the duly elected president of the country. Please try to read those, then you'll understand. When I address you on the separation and working together, you need to have this background. So, executive authority rests in the president, and all these ministers, and indeed the entire executive, they do everything for and on behalf of the chief executive of the country, His Excellency, the President. Article 126 to 128, now that goes to the judiciary. And let me tell you, colleagues, honorable members, sorry about colleagues, honorable members, even courts, sometimes they make a mistake. They go and make a decision which enact laws. They veer into your space, but they don't want anybody to veer in their space.